Hey guys, we're back. Sorry about last week. From time to time, I get pulled into being a transportation officer, and I get to drive around people, and that's what I had to do last week. So sorry I wasn't around, but gotta take care of some family matters sometimes. But we're here, and the market took a poop last week. I mean, you could say 2 straight weeks of pooping, but I don't know. Here we are, a little bit of a roller
And
coaster up and down day from what started out yesterday in the futures and the pre-market. But I don't know. What did you guys expect to see? I mean, it's a lot of chop.
yeah, we have the link tweeted out.
Yeah, I'm tweeting it right now.
All right.
Yeah,
I'll
I
make
was
sure people are
somewhat.
listening before we start talking.
Oh, excuse me.
I like it when GP is sassy. It's
He's
great.
he's on one today, and now it's making me log into stock twits, all this stuff. So if you're
I mean, we're
watching
doing it
this,
during market hours.
if you
It'd be
if
nice
you're
to have
if
people
you're watching
involved.
this, then you're going to hear a bunch of us jibber jabber and not talking any context. But we're getting there. We are live on the pod. What about old Bitcoin starting all? It almost reached 70K today, but fell back in a little bit. Why does that want to be? I don't even know what name that was, but that wasn't JFDI. JFDI JOA something. Click at GPiza. Oh, hi GP. Hi Nick. Pleasure to be
Hey,
back. And I just stock twatted it.
all right.
Nice. Now, 10 minutes later, Stock Twits will actually post it.
Ooh, we got a little shit. You're spicy today.
I know that's so fucking
He's
great.
spicy
I
today.
just
I said, "Hey guys, are we doing the pod today?" And he said, "Sure." And we've been on this call for about 8 minutes now, and it's just been spicy, GP.
I ain't got no time.
Okay, all right. I
can
don't know.
I
I'll just
uh,
keep talking about shit, and
answer.
you guys chime in whenever you feel like it, I guess.
I as far as like the cues go, I was somewhat anticipating like a little bit of sideways action here. Just based on like range expansion when the cues took out that like that last pivot, what was that last Wednesday or yeah, last Wednesday. So like at 474, it
Hmm.
kind of coincided with the 50-day, which I found to be kind of convenient. But we started like a CD leg down there, taking out that low. And we basically drilled it kind of heading into the end of the week. And when these measured moves, typically, at least from what I witness, when these measured moves hit, no matter how you really want to like, draw them out, whether it's based on like just like a ABCD pattern or like any type of pattern you find out there, typically when the measured moves complete, price at the very least pauses. I'm not saying it necessarily reverses or whatnot, but it, at the very least kind of moves sideways into some like indecision. So at least as far as like today, I kind of was just kind of expecting this at the very least a bounce. But the 20-day is rolling over now. And so now the races are, at this point, it's like we need to kind of build another ABCD leg up to for me anyways to get really excited on the long
It's
side.
it's
I mean, on
kind of
the
on a
long,
race to above 472, 473, wouldn't you
yeah,
say?
yeah,
If
totally.
it,
And
if it
it
can,
gives us a pivot to like trade against too, I think. So I think things are setting up great.
and your stop outs last week's low.
What's that?
and I would play the stop out as last week's low.
Yeah, for sure.
If you
I think if
go lower
we
than
do
last
leg
week, then
lower,
it's done.
I think if we do leg lower, I could definitely see like 440-ish.
Yeah, for sure.
That's just kind of my thought. If we do see weakness like really start to come in, that's kind of the area that I'm really eyeing is like the 420, 440 area.
Hey, GP, do we pay any attention to these gaps here on the daily?
No, not for me.
I do it.
I don't. What's the point of the gaps, right? Like it's, yeah, we're just kind of stuck, and week after week, it's FOMC or CPI or PCE or whatever you want to do, and then they do nothing, and then we rinse and repeat the next week. So market's kind of in a holding pattern. I still think we're waiting for the FOMC decision, whether it's Wednesday or next cycle or not. But until we have a direction from the people who are setting our monetary policy, I don't know if we have much room to the downside or upside, to be honest. I think we're just, and you're in summer doldrums on that. So market's just kind of in a holding pattern, right? Like if you
So
look at a
you're
lot
kind
of
of
these stocks,
bored. That's the attitude we're picking up, right? You're kind of bored. Like you're over this
dude, like look
shenanigans.
at Meta. Meta's been at this range for how long now? 6 months, 8 months. Um, Amazon tagged 200 how many times before failing right back to 175? Google straight down, Tesla down, right? Like but it's not breaking down. It's just, yeah, it's just doing nothing. Like the market's not doing, look at, and obviously I'll talk about Netflix over and over again, but 3 points away from all-time highs and on
Whoop.
another really good earnings report, just kind of slight down to whatever. It's not going anywhere. It's not moving anywhere. It's just kind of staying where it's been. Fundamentals are better than when it broke down in 2021 and we still can't push higher. And I'm in the firm camp that if and when Netflix ever breaks out, the rest of the market starts to move with it as it's the bull market leader. And it's been sideways since February, 620 to 630 since February. It's now July, right? And so a lot of things are just like, yeah, fine. If you're trading and you're day trading, great. This environment's up and down, up and down. But if you're looking at your long-term investing portfolio, lots of things are just stuck. Look at shitty Shopify. Look at shitty Square. Look at shitty Snow. Look at shitty Wayfair. Like the list can go on, right? It's not
So
just
we've
tech.
been doing this pod for a while now, and every time GP gets in this funky attitude within 1 to 2 weeks,
No shit.
usually less, things dramatically change. So I'm not sure if this is his genuine persona here that he's giving us, or this is GP trying to reverse jinx some action.
No, not reverse, but the reality is we haven't moved anywhere in months, right? Like find the Q's up, Q's down, Q's up, Q's down. But look at the names, right? Just look at the names. Apple had underperform and then outperform and now back to exactly where it was like 3 months ago. Amazon after 3 years, I think it's one of the cheaper FANG stock names, keeps rejecting 200 because Jeff Bezos wants to sell some money to buy another fucking yacht or whatever the fuck he's doing. And so we're in a holding pattern in so many names for so long that if you zoom out, Amazon's been sideways since 2020. Like forget just this topping power. It's sideways since 2020. Like look at that chart. Like
That's the monthly.
if you closed your portfolio in 2020 and you return now, almost everything you own outside of maybe NVDA and some of the chip names are exactly where they were in 2020.
Patience has worn thin, Nick.
4 years already of the lost decade we've talked about.
This is the guy who told me don't get off the train in Chicago.
And you'd still be on the fucking train in Chicago.
I should have gotten off the train in Chicago, is basically what you're telling me.
No, but if you didn't, you'd just be exactly where you were. You'd be having a good time in Chicago. It's the summer.
Chicago's beautiful in the summer. Nick,
Yeah.
how do you take that? I started off this question about
I don't.
do
Okay,
these
so
gaps mean anything? And you said yes, and he said no. So I want to hear your yes.
Wait. Well, Paul, what was your question
There's
again?
the chart in the Qs. I started off
Yeah.
this whole diatribe by GP came from the question of me saying, do these gaps mean anything? And he said no and went on to where we are now. But you were interjecting and saying yes. So why yes?
Well, okay, so like typically when I see gaps and consecutive gaps in one direction, especially when they kind of go unfilled, I become a little bit more I believe that the strength in the direction of that trend is picking up a little bit. So while I do think we're going to see a little bit of a bounce here, I think we're going to see some more downside. And I think that will, at least kind of just how I'm looking at things, like I think that will be the leg that kind of, I don't know, a capitulatory leg, basically. Like I think we're going to see one more leg
crescendo bottom before you get some lift.
Yeah, so like let's just say we rally back up to like that, let's just say 470, like 470 area, or even kind of into that gap right there, and then we flush one more leg down. Like that's just kind of what I could see happening. You know, you zoom out and you just look at the weekly chart on the Qs, and like I think the weekly looks fucking great. And this should kind of probably, I mean, this is pretty much like in alignment with, you know, like GP's attitude as far as like, you know, where we're at, right? Like we're at like an exhausting place. Even if we bounce a little bit and roll over down to that trend line that you have drawn, you know, that would still look incredibly fucking bullish, you know, like at least in the Qs, for instance. And in that regard, we're correcting kind of through time rather than price. So I don't know. I think stuff is setting up like, you know, like Netflix, for instance, just to, you know, to GP. Like, I think a little bit more downside even here would look great. Like if price continued to pull in to like the mid 500s, let's just say even and somewhere in there put in a higher low while the 200-day is catching up, because the 200-day is at the low end of this base already. Like the 200-day is sitting at 555, and that's right in alignment with the previous two lows. So like when I look at like a base or like a sideways consolidation, I'm typically looking for 5 waves. And so and Netflix is currently in that 5th wave, like wherever we end up putting a low in, pending we at least hold the 555 low. If that low gets taken out, then obviously all bets are off, because then range expansion is happening, but to the downside, not to the upside. So
you're not.
If that 555 low happens, you're gonna see a most likely a right shoulder form, and you have a head and shoulders formation at a double top. And so that goes to my point. We ain't going nowhere. Fucking this is like this is where I'm struggling, and it's not like it's not that I'm selling, but it's hard to be anything but apathetic towards this market, because if you look at these names, right? Like, well, forget Netflix. Let's talk about Meta. It took Meta the entire quarter to recover the earnings gain, and in 5 days lost it all. or like 6 days or something like that. Literally, it's nuts. And
Meta
so
is basically. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
no, I'm just saying like this is look at the volume to the downside, right? Like there's not much to cause these types of moves yet they were still happening. So if you have any muscle memory, you're taking a look back at 2021 and be like, holy shit, there's gonna be a lot of cursing today because that's the type of market this is. Um, it's it's but that's the thing, right? Like you had no volume on a lot of these moves going into 2021 before we had the 37% move down in the indices, right? And that's when the volume actually picked up. So if you have any muscle memory over the last few years of this market, you're starting to get worried because it's the 1 foot out the door market, right? Like it's hard to get any upside because everyone's 1 foot out the door. And if you see this low volume kind of destruction in these names, and then earnings comes in this week, and then you see another destruction. Like if you think about Netflix back in 2021, 2022, it went from 700 to 510 before, or yeah, 510 before even earnings happened, right? It already lost 200 points before earnings happened. It was very little volume. And then the next two earnings were destruction all the way down to 160. So if your muscle memory is like, oh crap, this is happening again, right at the pivot highs of 2020 and 2021, your technical radar should be up, right? Ultimately. And hopefully we don't have that, but you should be concerned about the way these things are behaving at 3-4 year highs. And that's my personal behavior. I personal thoughts. And I think if you're looking at this market objectively, that doesn't seem normal to lose 100 points in a stock like Meta in I don't was there even any news for it to go from 540 to 440 or 450? Not much, if anything, right? So sometimes it smells of distribution, sometimes it smells uh of accumulation, and the 1 foot out the door market should leave your antennas peaked up and paying attention to this price action because it can break either way.
All right. So this is this revelation. I shouldn't call it a revelation. This thesis isn't coming out of nowhere exactly. I mean, we've witnessed this type of movement in the market before, but we've just come off of months of all of us being bullish. And I understand it's all about time frame. How bullish is your time frame? But let's just say Netflix does put in that right shoulder, right? And you got the huge gap below. And let's just say Meta, right? This is Netflix I've got on the screen. And now Meta, I mean, we got little Batman ears going here, right? With a huge gap up right underneath. Technically, these aren't the best setups, right? So
I mean,
I'm getting the impression from you both that neither of you are putting new money to work even after 2 weeks of selling.
So not in these names, but I have in names like one of my quarterly picks for coin, right? I coin has
All right, so
been
so
up and down.
Mega, sorry, GP, Mega's out the door right now for you because you've mentioned Netflix, Amazon, Google, Meta, Apple. You've hit them across the board. So Mega's out for you, right? Your rotation station to something else. GP, what about you? Or sorry, Nick, what about you?
as far as putting new money to work,
Yeah. Are you putting anything to work? And if so, are you rotating out of megas?
no. I took half my Tesla position off at 260, and I had sold out of my entire Goldman position at 500. So those were the by far the biggest positions I had on. And to this point, I added back some of Tesla, um, not all of it. I'm not putting. I'm still long. I'm just not adding to anything.
Got it.
You're out of financials, out of Goldman. Did you say that?
I sold from the trade that I had on. I sold
Okay,
out of
okay.
all of the 500. I'm not.
Because to me,
It's of like
financials are one of the sectors that actually look pretty damn good. And like my radar and my knowledge of how the markets work is financials are usually the last sector in the overall bull market to happen, right? So if you're gonna catch financials, this is probably your time to catch it. So and it's behaving a little, right? Like JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, all had good reactions to earnings and immediate back tests, but still had really good reactions to earnings. And XLF is just breaking out of a 13 or 15-year consolidation high after a 2-year consolidation after that 13-year consolidation. So I really like the financials. Small caps are obviously showing lots of strength overall. I think like we keep rejecting that 2286 mark in the RTY, but overall it's showing showing a lot of strength. XBI showing a lot of strength. Regional showing a lot of strength, right? Like, yes, it's had a big move and they're going to need a little bit of consolidation, but regionals is probably the one I would pay attention to the most because that thing blew right through the weekly 200 like it didn't even exist. Right? So
it's trying to retest it now, maybe.
yeah, but everything else has rejected it the week that it tested, right? Look at XBI.
It busted through it with no problem, no issues. I get your point.
So that to me is compared to so many other names, Netflix included, all the tech names, when they got to their 200 weeks, they got rejected immediately. Whereas regionals may get rejected this week as it's a trap. But what I'm saying is it's a shift of character from the other names I've been following, which is straight through the 200 week without any issues. So overall strength, I think you should be looking at the small caps. You should definitely be looking at regionals, financials, and tech is kind of flat to the point, right? Like they're good earnings, not great earnings. You're seeing distribution in some of the names like cybersecurity, which has been insanely hot. You're seeing distribution, CrowdStrike, all that stuff. You saw distribution in Palo Alto earlier this year. So they're going through their rotations within the tech sector. Anyway, that's
great, GP. So we're coming a full circle around to my final question here. Nick, you're kind of sitting on your hands. GP, you're doing some rotation into IW to smaller names, less loved names. Is that fair?
Not less loved, because less loved has been doing crappy, right? Like if you're less loved in tech or fintech, you've been absolutely destroyed. Shopify, Square, Roku, Roblox. The list can go on, right? In those sectors, but in the small cap space, I'm using the sector rotation as a way to stay long, not necessarily individual names, because small caps are, to me, harder to pick. They're like biotechs. You can pick 10 biotechs and maybe one really works and the other 9 don't. So to me, I rather just stay in the sector.
Okay, so now the question is, are each of you less bullish than you were 2 weeks ago, the last time that we were on?
What time frame?
Well, I mean, over the next 6 months.
No.
All right. So it's
we're going to 7,700 on the SPX. It just matter of when.
We're just slopping around, chopping around, and we're all apathetic until something hits, right? And GP, you were saying FOMC. Sorry, go ahead, Nick. I'm sorry.
I wouldn't be surprised to see the chop continue for the next month or two.
Mm-hmm. I think the chop continues because there's actually clear rotation in those names that I was just talking about, right? Like I'm not saying there's rotation out of tech into these names. I'm saying people are putting money to work here and not necessarily to work in the mega caps. They're already long or they're over long. So they're not putting additional money to work, but they are putting money to work in the small caps. And the small caps as a whole are not even worth what NVIDIA's worth or Apple is worth or Microsoft is worth, like, to be honest, right? So even if you sold like 10% of NVIDIA, you would still have insane amount of money rotation into small caps. And I don't think that's what you're seeing here. I think you're actually just seeing people take some of their cash piles and allocate it to sectors that they think could potentially work on rate cuts, right? Like Redfin or look at the home builders, man. The home builders are doing really well too. I believe
Home Depot and Lowe's.
that Home Depot and Lowe's look good, but even Toll Brothers and KBH Homes, those had pretty good weeks last week, right?
Oh, brother. Of course. Of course.
So I think there's apathy in the tech name because it's been such a great trade outside of maybe Tesla, right? But in the tech space, it's been such a great trade for the last couple of years that we're like, I don't need to put any more money to work here. Let me see what else I can find.
All right, so I do think there's some rotation going on. I mean, you don't have this kind of selling without moving money out and putting it somewhere else, right? And some of the names you mentioned, specifically banks and the IWM, have not fallen as much as some of these mega cap and tech names, right? So just because you're not necessarily rotating money out, Nick or GP, right, doesn't mean that rotation isn't going on. My question was new money, right? It was where are you putting money to work, not necessarily what are you selling to buy something. So I think I agree kind of with what both of you are saying. However, I've not been excited to really be investing or buying anything new for a while now, right? Because it's all about the prep you do before the move actually happens. And
Yeah.
previous buys have done me well that I'm just letting them ride. I do think that we're going to have opportunity here probably within the next couple weeks. I don't know if we're going to hit those lows like maybe were thinking, Nick, or making a thesis
Not.
that could come.
Yeah.
I kind of just think we're going to be in a sloppy market. This is the doldrums of summer, basically, right? This is the dog days of summer. This is the last time people are going to have vacation till the fall. You know, it's just a slow period of time in the market, it seems usually. So I don't think there's anything to get too excited about or too worried about personally. So I'm more of even kill, like you let it chop it up for the next 2 4 weeks and we'll be fine. I'll see you in September kind of deal.
Yeah, we're holding the weekly 20, right? Like ultimately we're holding the weekly 20. We haven't broken it.
And when you look at the monthly charts, I mean, yeah, monthly charts are overextended, but they're nowhere near being in a possible spot of like, oh my gosh, things are going all to shit, right? And we've constantly preached about using our time frames as sort of our rules, right? So if we're longer term, monthly, weekly, daily are the time frames that you hit, and daily is always less important. So again, back to the gap down questions. I think it's something to be aware of and take notice of, but I don't think it's something to hit the oh shit button. We're going to continue gapping down for a third or fourth or fifth straight week.
And so we can, right? But like
We totally can.
it's still so even with the gap downs, there's only a handful of names that have had like bigger breakdowns, right? Like there's still a lot of names that are holding like, but the concern is like I would have hoped to see some more better rotation in the software names, and you're not seeing that yet either, right? So like Snowflake is sitting between 125 and 130 still. MongoDB is still down there, right? And yes, ServiceNow had a good earnings report and they did well. CRM still kind of struggling a little bit. So I think you need to be paying attention to the sector rotations, and like Home Depot does look good, right? And I'm an owner of Home Depot. It's just I think anything under 280 or 290, I believe I was buying back then. And just waiting. It had like a 3 or 4% dividend. It's not, and it's they provide to the housing market. So I think it's good overall. And it's just basing and building and basing and building. Yep, exactly.
I
That was pretty easy
I
to
don't
see.
trade those names, right? Those names you just hold and wait.
Yep. Agreed.
I
Right.
kind of
And like
feel
so, but I also think Tesla's going to have a phenomenal end of the year, right? Like I think there will be names within the mega cap space that will do really well. And so I think you have the daily golden cross or whatever it is, and the pull into that on the daily golden cross. Um, but I think this is overall going to be going higher, right? So there's still opportunity in some tech names, but a lot of the tech names, people are long in the tooth.
Well,
Like,
why
are
would
you?
you though, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah,
that's what's paid for the longest time. Like, why would I go sell out of a position? I don't know. Let's just say Google, right? Why would I go sell out of Google, even after what it's done? If I was buying all of this, right? If I was buying this, or even back here, why would I be getting out right now? It's
at
not
some point
worth
it
it.
becomes opportunity cost, right? Like,
Yeah, for sure.
and I
But
think that's
but
that's where
like
people
Home Depot is a
are.
name that you're not trading out of, right? Because Home Depot, over the long course of time is going to keep going up and to the right, correct?
Yeah, and it's sized appropriately, right? So I don't really
Yes.
care.
Yes.
So the ones that are size heavier are the ones you usually care about, right? That's just normal human behavior.
Yeah.
And that one's provided. Home Depot is one of those names. If we get a dip back down to the 280s, guess what? I'm buying, right? Like it's one of those names that I think at that point, unless something fundamentally changes in their landscape or in their retail space, it's a name that when you do get opportunities like Costco, for example, is a buy and hold, right?
Yep.
And so like but that's I think I noted we were talking about Netflix earlier. Netflix had 10 million shares post earnings. I can't remember the last time Netflix had 10 million shares post earnings. It's usually in the 20 to 30 million range. So it's just apathy, right? Like it's just like, yeah, good earnings, good for you. We're gonna just kind of sell a little bit, buy a little bit, sell a little bit, buy a little bit, and that's kind of where a lot of these tech names are. And so that's why I don't think money's actually rotating out of these names. They're like, oh, good earnings, good enough, and well, I have this cash pile that's sitting there, so let me put it to work in names that could play catch up if the FOMC cuts rates and stuff like that. So that's why I don't think there's rotation personally, because these tech
Yeah,
names are still doing well.
I'm kind of with you there. Like I don't think money is rotating out, especially out of the whatever the Mag 7 names, because I'm in the camp that they're kind of completing their last kind of leg here. Whether we do kind of continue lower end them or we do put in a higher low, like I think we're in kind of the later stage of like high level bases in all the FANG names. So I don't think money is necessarily I think it's just kind of normal churning behavior, especially considering where they're at in relation to where they've been, especially coming out of the 2022 market. I don't, the thing that I think is going to fuck people is the people that think the magnificent Mag 7 names, I hate whatever. I think people think that the returns in the Mag 7 are over, like the real returns where, dude, I bet you they all like 5 and 10x from here over the next five, by the end of the decade, I would be willing to bet. So it's like, again, I don't think money is rotating out. I do think that there's like we've kind of been talking about this, like money, like the way that it feels to me is that money wants to go, it really wants to like go somewhere and stick. But yeah, you're right. Like it's in kind of a 1 foot in the door, 1 foot out of the door. At the same time, it's like, dude, we don't know. We don't know with all this like AI, like with all the stuff. So as far as new money coming in, back to your question, Ben, like, dude, I think again, I mean, that's why we're seeing the performance in the IWM. Yeah,
Well,
and that's probably
so
that.
when I know everything we say, like there's can be double meaning or different meanings depending on who the person is who's hearing it. I'm not saying that people are abandoning these. I mean, there's hot money, all right, and there's investment money,
Yeah,
and the hot money's
for sure.
always moving around. And I don't think what we've seen in volumes, you guys know how much I look at volume. GP can correct me if I'm wrong here. But volumes haven't been like extraordinary. I mean, he was just talking about Netflix's volume after earnings, which was pretty putrid, right? So that leads me to believe there is rotation, but it's the hot money that's rotating out, not people who are invested.
Yeah, the people who are trying to get a quick trade, right, or whatever it is. But like,
Yeah.
if we want to talk about the doldrums of summer, right, that's why the volume is low. I'm looking at July 2023 in Netflix, 23.6 million shares. July 2024, 9.8 million shares, right? That's less than half of the volume, trading volume from the summer doldrums of 2023. So yeah, that's maybe the people who bought in the last couple of weeks on hopefully an earnings pop or whatever, didn't get it, got
Didn't
out,
work
right?
out. I'm pulling out, right? There's my
Yep.
opportunity cost. I'm gone. I'll take my loss and pack it up and try to get it back somewhere else, right?
Yeah, and I think that's what we're seeing. That's why I say like I don't like it was a bit more clear distinction of rotation when we first started this podcast in January 2022 that guys, like we're at peak growth and things aren't moving anywhere like and Netflix was already down 200 points at that point, right? Like it was already selling off pretty hard and earnings had not even come out. So people were already running for the hills. And so when Netflix earnings did come in, it was massive volume, the first one.
That's a good look on Sherwin-Williams. I saw you put in the chat there, Nick. All-time
Yeah,
high.
there's a
Yeah.
lot of great looking charts that are not tech. Right? Nick, if you're
I
I'm sure you're doing your scans, there's a ton.
yeah.
And we had some of the best breadth over the last few weeks, by the way.
So isn't
Right?
this
Like,
what we want for a bull case?
yeah, but I think that's what I'm saying is that the sectors that you should be looking at are not the tech sectors, right?
Yeah,
Like the
yeah. It's not the
financials
Max
or the home
7. It's
builders.
not the mega caps, right? It's not
Yeah.
not the same 10 stocks that everybody's been buying for the last 4 years.
Yeah, like I really like Coinbase. Earnings is coming up. It'll do what it does, but ultimately the chart on the quarterly, monthly, weekly time frames looks fantastic, right? So it's a matter of time when that starts to move up and out, whenever that is. Right now it's sort of trading how Bitcoin's trading, but Bitcoin's back to 67,000 and coin is where it was 3 weeks ago when Bitcoin was 63,000 or 62,000. So it's not necessarily trading exactly like Bitcoin, but I like it, right? Coin's not a big cap either, right? I don't know what the market
If you
cap
had
is.
if you had to pick between if you had to pick between trading Bitcoin, between trading a basket of, let's say, coin and hood, and then another basket of like all of the crypto miners, like the Mara, the Riot, the CLSK, you had to pick one of the three.
So
Which one would you
just
pick?
straight Bitcoin, a basket of
Yep.
miners, or a basket of fintechs.
Yeah.
I think
Uh, I
I think we know GPMI answer at least in the next couple months.
Yeah. But I think overall, like if we're thinking about this logically, right, the way I look at it is the asset underneath is what it is, right? The miners always suck. Look at the silver miners,
Yeah.
look at the gold miners. They're like it's farmers. Farmers never get you've never heard of a rich farmer, right? Like it's not they make stuff and they distribute it out, but they're at the lowest rung of making their transactional costs. So the guys who are sitting in the middle like Hood, like Coinbase, that are charging 5% for God knows what else, and their ridiculous fees are the ones who I think work out at the end, right? To outperform over a longer period of time.
I just had to look at T-Doc. Sorry.
Why? Why?
I saw it was $9.50, and I just had to pull up the chart of death.
Like there's
Yeah,
things that will never return. That is at like the near top of my list of it never returning to anything of value. It will get bought out for $9.56, and that'll be the end of it.
Hey, Nick, I'm going with Bitcoin. That doesn't mean that being in either of the fintechs is wrong. I say Bitcoin is because that with the other two, Hood and Coin, right? There are it's a company. They're companies, right? And things could Bitcoin could all crypto, everything could be going crazy up, and something could be going on in the company and drag that down. So that doesn't mean that I think either one is right or wrong to do. I think Bitcoin is just a simpler play than having to deal with the potential risk of a corporate malfeasance in some way. And I'm not saying that there's anything going on at Hood or Coin. I'm not saying that there's anything
No,
going
but there's been a lot of corporate malfeasance in these names, particularly, and Coinbase actually has been one of the survivors, right?
Right.
So they're the sole beneficiaries, and they go and F that up, then it could be
I'm
Hood.
long Coin,
right?
just for full, disclosure. I mean, I've been long Coin for a while. I'm staying long Coin. But I haven't added to it. I've added to Bitcoin though. I added to Bitcoin 2 weeks ago now, or 3 weeks ago. So that's just how
I
I
think
look at
it'll be more of the store of value, right? Conversation.
it. Yeah.
So it'll be the more stable one over the longer period, yes.
Yeah.
But what can outperform is the transactional names, right? Like if Coinbase and Hood don't screw up things, then they can actually outperform over it because they not only have Bitcoin, they also have other names where they get transactional volume from. Plus, Hood in itself is starting to build out some of their retirement portfolios, and if they're starting to get bigger and better on these offerings, then they can add value in different places that's not even crypto.
Hey guys, I need you to take the conversation for a minute. I got to step away for just a moment.
Sure.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, GP, that's kind of the approach I've kind of taken. I mean, with I don't trade Bitcoin. I just DCA in and I buy a block of it like every week. I don't really even I don't pay attention to it too much. I just don't think that any of these other names are going to break out of the kind of bases that they're in until Bitcoin does. I've kind of steered clear of the miners in particular. Although I do own coin as well, and then I did own Hood, but I slowly sold out of Hood entirely. And for the most part, a lot of that capital I ended up just throwing at coin anyway. So I don't know. They're kind of hot names, and I feel like
I like what you're spitting, Nick. I think you have to bifurcate it a bit, right? Like one's a DCA position that you're gonna just hold and it can do well over time, right? But like let's look at Bitcoin in February. I think it went from 50,000 to all-time highs, which is what, a 20% move? Right? And if you were in one of these names, Coinbase nearly doubled, or more than doubled. MicroStrategy is just on another planet. It nearly doubled as well. So you have opportunities where those can, if the underlying asset starts to hold higher and higher values, these names tend to, because the transactional volume is percentage based, right? Their fees are not capped at a flat rate. It's not stocks where you pay $5 a stock. It is 5%. So if the value of these names start to increase, 5% is a bigger pool. Right? Even Hood, they don't charge you any fees, but the spread is so bad that that's where they make their money. And that spread is typically 5%. It's not a flat spread. It's
Or they make you pay for like Coinbase One up front, so you don't have to pay those fees, but you're paying a membership basically to get lower fees on your trades, basically.
Yeah, so they're a mixture of Costco and whatever brokerage houses, I guess. I don't even know.
Well, I when we did our quarterly picks, Coinbase and Bitcoin were what I was looking at to take. And I don't trade my Bitcoin. I trade my altcoins, but I don't trade my Bitcoin. And that ultimately was what led me to getting along Bitcoin because my cost basis is way low on both of them, but I felt better by adding to Bitcoin, know that I'm not selling it, right? As opposed to adding more coin that would be a trading position for me. I was looking for something that I'm not going to have to babysit in essence.
Yeah, and that's but what absolutely. What I know is unless Coinbase has its own individual problems, if the market in general crashes or dies, guess what dies? Literally everything.
Everything.
It'll be a percentage less that it dies, right? Like, but I don't remember a market where you have a 50-60% decline and people are like, oh look, gold outperformed. No, gold just went down less. Like I will say it again, it
Right.
just went down less. And so cash is always your best option in those moments. So
Nick, which way would you lean on your own question? Would you go with the miners? Would you go with the brokerages, or would you take a crypto? And I kind of know what I think you would probably choose last.
Yeah, I kind of answered actually that while you were gone. I basically said like my Bitcoin I don't trade. I buy a block of it every week. Um, I do own coin. I don't own hood. I did own hood, and I basically just have slowly pieced out of it to the point where all that capital has been reallocated to coin. And the other miners I have attempted, but like I've tried to steer clear as much as freaking possible because I feel like every time I do, I just end up getting chopped out of them, and none of them are going to go until Coinbase busts above that 72,000 mark.
Bitcoin, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we came
But when
awfully
that
close
does,
to
I
that.
think when Bitcoin
So
does bust out, these names will outperform by a long shot.
yeah,
I mean, we actually
at
did
least
get 70 today.
temporary.
Right up 70 to the penny. 70K today.
I don't. Were you guys watching any of that Bitcoin conference over the weekend?
No.
No, you just
I don't.
watch the
I
price
mean,
action, you'll know what's happening in the conference, which is nothing. It's been sideways.
yeah, I was just kind of catching headlines, but like the more that I see about it, just the more I'm like, holy I don't know.
I mean,
The more
I'm not going to be surprised if we get another pull in into the 50s somewhere, Nick. So like
me neither.
I'm looking to add a little bit more if I get the opportunity, but I'm not going to buy it up here. Just like coin. I mean, I know you're trading coin or buying coin. I kind of wouldn't touch it until it came back to the bottom of this range.
Yeah, if I get 200,
Yeah,
I'd be even 180.
yeah.
If I could get 180, 200, I'll
I
throw
mean,
more money
selfishly,
at
I
it.
don't want that to happen. I'm okay with my position, but that's where I would look to play if I were trying to play some more.
Yeah.
I'd be super concerned if it broke last month's high,
For
personally.
sure. Yeah,
Right? I
I'm
mean,
not
last
saying that
month's
that's an
low.
automatic. I'm not saying that's an automatic buy. I'm just saying I would not be interested in buying until it come into some lower level than it is now.
Or it takes out 283, right? Like
Yeah,
with
yeah,
some with some emphasis. And
yeah.
so you're buying middle of the range, it doesn't make sense here, right? Unless you don't have a position and you're slowly building,
Yeah,
then that's a different conversation. But
absolutely.
it's middle of the pack. The month right now is almost an outside month. You have 2 days, and if we break last month's low, that's going to be an outside month, and that's not always nice to have.
No.
And so I would like to see this not break last month's low because then I'd be
I
concerned.
don't think it's going to. I really don't.
I don't think so either, but goodness, like we went from 272 to 231, 226 last week. in a week. So anything can happen. And that was while Bitcoin stayed exactly kind of flat. So
Yeah, yeah, there was a lot of movement, but the market moves. See that, and that's one of the factors that can pull Coinbase and Hood around, right? Like Bitcoin is kind of going to do what it's going to do, and market factors, outside factors other than Bitcoin, can make those stocks move in both a positive and a negative fashion. And
yeah, but you still have regulatory risk with Bitcoin always. Right now, you have the
of
big
course,
hitters in, so it's less likelihood. But if governments start saying, you know what, this is terrible, and I know it's been going on for a decade, right? And they want to kind of shut it down, then the risk still exists with Bitcoin. But ultimately, I think Bitcoin is this generation's gold, right? So I think
um,
it'll be fine.
I've I've kind of been poking around at some defense names. How are you guys? What are you guys looking at on defense? Anything? Does it
RTX.
interest you at all? No.
Like cat.
Art,
Well, I missed this one. LMT.
Yeah.
I own RTX and Axon.
Raytheon looks great.
Oh, I haven't
Raytheon.
looked at Cato.
Yep. Cat looks
Yeah,
okay
a
to
lot of
me.
these names look pretty decent, but it's just like I feel like a lot of times defense names requires war or like unrest, and it's never sat well with me. I'm sure they do well over the long term, but that's just what it is.
Yeah, I'm not out here trying to be a war hawk or anything. But I just as much money that has been going into rebuilding our military as we basically lend lease, give away equipment to Ukraine. Um, I don't know. I think that that's going to have to show bigger and bigger over the course of time because I don't think that conflict's anywhere near being over.
No way.
Yeah, so one of the people in my chat mentioned BA as a
Hmm.
defense name.
Yeah, I saw that too.
I just don't like BA management, so
Nobody
that
does. Yeah, that's on
that's
all
gonna
our
be hard
shit
for me
list.
to I don't like the chart. Honestly, I think it looks like it's about to distribute down, but um, there's a lot of back and forth in this name before. Look at the distribution that happened in 2000 name.
Just
it
set,
took some time to play out.
just set your alert at 200 and leave it alone until if you hear
I would
200,
love
you
to
buy
see
it.
112 again. I know no one wants to hear that, but
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I've got 114 marked on the chart, but 112 will work. And my other sector that I'm looking at, GP, you're going to disown me. But energy.
why does
Oh,
that look good to anyone? I don't see
I'm not
I'm
saying
not
it
saying it
looks
looks
good to me
bad
right
either.
now. I'm not
What's
saying it
that?
looks, these are investments. These aren't trades.
Yeah.
yeah.
So over the next 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, I think both these sectors can be okay. Maybe I'm
And
wrong.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that it can't. Right now, it looks indifferent to me. Like if you're looking at XLE, and XLE is obviously weighted heavily towards XOM. So
Yeah, I just pulled the XOM chart up.
yeah. So I maybe it breaks out, but I looks like it's still at this point because it's still under that 94-ish level. It looks like a very complicated head and shoulders pattern on the 30-year time frame. And so I I it's the middle of the pack here to me. And I'm not sure
30-year
why.
time frame. Yeesh.
Or at least 17 years. How about that?
Sheesh.
and it's putting in doji after doji after doji, month after month after month. Oil is now back down to, what is it, 75? And XLE keeps holding, so I guess that's a good sign. You have monthly moving averages crossing up, so that's a good sign. I just don't, and the energy names in
BWXT.
general are nowhere near expensive, right?
Randy says BWXT. Randy always drops some gems in the chat. Hey, I think you've brought this one up before. I've got a line on it, Randy. BWXT. Dennis says SE.
But look at FANG after this, right? Like it's the
DRS.
same chart as BWXT. Um,
Leonardo DRS. I have no idea what that is. Electronic aerospace defense. Okay. That's beautiful. You love to see up and to the right like that.
yeah. But look at FANG. Very similar to BWXT on the monthly.
Yeah.
Right? Tried to break higher, rejected. On lower volume, yes, but that's how many dojis, how many wicks over here at
Well,
the
let's
all-time
let's
high?
not have it both way. If we're disciples to volume, let's be disciples to volume.
On what do you mean?
If volume is big going up, but little going down, then you have to disregard that, right?
Uh wait, what?
The the narrow volume sell-offs
Yeah.
should be seen with much less convictions than big volume moves, right?
Yeah. That's a
Yeah.
macro bullish divergence, right? Oil is
Right.
lower, XLE remains higher, right? So that's one of the things I just said, which is, but as a chart wise, you have on FANG, which has been one of the best energy names, right?
Yes.
Forget
Yeah.
it is on two months here, wicking off the highs, multiple weeks wicking off the highs, lots of lower volume, right? But it's had a 20x move in 4 years, or 15x move from 14 all the way to 214, right?
Yeah, just in the
So
last 52 weeks, it's up 50%, basically.
yeah. So you could have back and forth. I just don't know why people are bullish. I would say I'm indifferent on energy. From my usual stance of being bearish energy, I'm just saying I'm indifferent. Nothing looks like it's going to go higher at this point.
Yeah, and I've been
Even though,
notoriously wrong in energy, and I'm not saying that you got to go get you some gush tomorrow, Nick. I'm just saying that I'm looking at some names, and from a longer term picture, it might be something that I might buy. Maybe
yeah, like I really like rig, but it doesn't do anything.
it hasn't
There's
done anything ever.
I know, but there's so much volume accumulation on the monthly chart here that and that you want to buy it, but it goes nowhere. Right? So I'm like, I'm okay with just ignoring this sector completely.
Okay, fair enough. Nick, are you going to get you some gush?
Nah, there's not. I mean, I liked all those. What are those? Like all the growth guys were all over them. You know, like CEG, VS. What are they there? Like CEG, VST, GEV. I don't even remember what all the ones are, but like there's a bunch of like kind of IPO and high flyers that I think are, I don't know, we're still paying attention to. Like CEG right now is on the 200-day. They are like, they exploded, and whether or not they've actually topped it. I think there's a trade here in one direction or the other, but
That kind of looks like death to me.
it very well
I have
could.
a
I mean, I'm
question for
not.
both of you when you're done.
Oh, I think. Oh, go ahead.
No, just I was wondering if Buffett wasn't buying Occidental, where Occidental would be trading at. Because they've been talking about Buffett buying Occidental at 60 for like almost 2 years now, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, it's still at 60. So
Yeah, at least 2 years. Because he started buying it in 2020, right?
something like that. I don't know. I'm just yeah. Well, like my question would be like if you didn't have someone like Buffett, where would this be?
Uh,
Great
He
question.
probably saving the company in some capacity, whatever his involvement is. So
Dude, he owns like 40%. He's not going to let this fail. He'll just buy it out ultimately. So there's no point of trying to short this because he's shown over and over again he's willing to buy anything under 60.
Papa Warren, don't let this fail. We've had a little bit of a pullback in the market since the pod's been on. Just a little bit. A little bit of selling. Lots of there's so much with earnings this week too. Any particular earnings names that you guys might be playing or looking at to scoop some up on the cheap?
if we saw if we saw like some of the Fang names or the Mag 7 names, I'm sorry, if I see them gap down, I'd like to wait to see the first couple. If they get smashed and bought up right away,
All right,
then I think it's game.
we'll do a lightning round, and I'll get an answer from each of you. Sell it or buy it, basically. Just
Buy, sell, or
three.
push.
What's that, Nick?
Buy, sell, or push. How about that?
All right, buy, sell, or push. That's fine. So tomorrow, in the morning, you have PayPal, Pfizer, BP.
PayPal, ignore. Push. There's no
I'm gonna buy.
accumulation in the chart. Maybe the earnings causes accumulation, but
Oh,
no reason.
Nick, you're a buyer of PayPal.
I'm just taking the other side. That's all.
All right. Don't be facetious. Let's actually play the game here.
Oh, I am. I'm gonna take the other side. I'm gonna say buy just based on the double bottom on the daily. How about that?
Yeah.
There's my reasoning.
I'd be a seller of BP. What was the other one?
Pfizer, PFE.
I've been a buyer of that for a long time, so
Buyers
that's a hold and accumulate.
Continue to buy.
If it dips, if it gives you a quadruple bottom or whatever you want to call it, if it dips, it's a buy. It's anything under, in my opinion, anything over a 5.5% dividend in a strong name like Pfizer or whatever is probably a solid buy because rates are not going much higher and people are going to start rotating into names that can pay them good dividends over the long time.
I'll go in order: PayPal, Pfizer, BP. I will go sell, buy, push. Tomorrow after the close, AMD and Microsoft.
I am going to sell AMD to zero. Because goodness, it has, I believe it's actually negative for the year now.
Yeah, I think
5% down for 12 months. Yep.
In one of the greatest chip revolutions, it's down. It has become, I don't know why, the ultimate
Don't you say it. Don't you
contrarian trade.
Don't you call it Intel. I swear to God, I'll come to New Jersey and find you.
No, not Intel. Never. No one's gonna ever be Intel. Intel can only be Intel. Maybe Cisco can be Intel, but no, it's just become a contrarian trader, right? Like
I'm calling them both buys.
AMD goes up, AMD goes down.
I'm calling them both buys.
I think SMH is heading to 200 to 220. So I'm a seller of AMD.
Seller. Two sales. Microsoft.
Microsoft, I'm a buyer all the way down to 400.
GP Microsoft.
I'm looking at the chart. I am a seller.
Wednesday after we have Meta and ARM. And Nick's favorite Lamb Research. I'll throw that one in there. It's just a bonus. Meta's a push for me. I don't want it here.
Meta, yeah. It's one of the cheaper names, but it's acting like crap, which always should be a concern. The volume isn't insane. I'd be a buyer against 450. Somewhere around there. So it's at 465. Like, so if it's at this kind of 445 level going into earnings, I'd probably be a buyer for the upside move. These are all hypotheticals, guys, by the way. These aren't full trades we're
We're
making.
just having a little fun. I'm a pusher of ARM and Lamb. Nick, Meta, ARM, and Lamb.
Meta, I'm a buyer versus the 200 day. Kind of same thing as Microsoft. If I even got a chance of
Be a seller here, though. Does that mean you're a seller here, though?
No,
Okay.
I'm not a seller. No, I'm not a seller here.
He's a pusher with a bit of bias to the buy, if lower.
If lower, sure. LRCX. And what was the other one? ARM.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm seller.
Seller of the chips. Thursday morning, Moderna and ConocoPhillips and Wayfair.
Moderna, I love here. I'm a buyer. What is ConocoPhillips? COP.
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 I'm a seller of COP. What was the other one?
Moderna, COP, and Wayfair, the dub.
Moderna, I'd be a buyer against the support here. And Wayfair is a push. It's going nowhere. Lots of accumulation to the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, for sure. Your only gift here in Wayfair is that we got a nice floor here at like 47 to 50. So
yeah, but it's at 47 to 50 for like 2 years.
I'm also a buyer of Moderna. Push on Conoco, push on Wayfair for me. Thursday after hours, we have Amazon, Apple, Coinbase, Square. I'm leaving out DraftKings and Roku. But Amazon, Apple,
Roku, Roblox. Wow, Thursday is going to be huge.
Yeah, Thursday's kind of crazy. Amazon.
Snap is the ultimate bull market indicator.
What is?
Snapchat.
Snap, yes. Well,
that's on Thursday.
Yeah, Snap be fucking everything up, to be honest with you.
Tell me that doesn't look like an inverse head and shoulders, though.
Oh, it totally does. I mean, if this rockets up 30-40%, the entire market, all of mega cap is going higher too, led by Meta.
Yep.
If that plays out. Amazon push, Apple push, Coinbase push, and Square block, I will say
push.
Buy.
Interesting. Go ahead, Nick.
Sorry, I was checking a text. What was the last one?
Amazon, Apple, Coinbase, and Block, aka Square.
Amazon, I'm a buyer.
A buyer.
Yeah, Square. Nah, I'll leave it. Push. What was the other one?
Apple and Coinbase. Amazon, Apple, Coinbase, Square.
Apple, I'm also a buyer. Gosh, anywhere here. Yeah, anywhere between here and the 200 day or 50 day. I'm sorry. And then coin. Gosh. It's like the same thing with a bunch of them. Like, I'm not a buyer here, but I am a buyer between here and the 200 day. I'm not looking to sell it though, per se.
So you're a push. You're a push.
Yeah. Yeah. Push.
You're a push.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I'm gonna go through the list of a lot of the Thursday stocks. Apple push, Amazon push, Roku push, Roblox. Actually been pretty strong, so I'd be a buyer here. Melly buyer. Melly Mercado is also coming up on Thursday. Wayfair push, Dash push, Snap buyer, Square push, Intel goodness, someone just put them out of their misery. Mara, push.
You said you're a
DraftKings.
buyer of Snap here.
I'd be a buyer of Snap, yes.
Okay.
Rejection off the 200 weekly right into the 50 rising. I think it's a great. I'm not saying it can't fail. I'm saying it's a good risk reward on a rising moving average retest with a potential inverse head and shoulders kind of setting up here. I like it. Not saying it can't fail because it's Snapchat. It fails on every earnings without fail. But I'd be a buyer here. Intel, someone needs to just put them out of their misery. Mara, I'm not a huge fan of. I'd be a push on that. DraftKings, I'd be a buyer of DraftKings. I like it because that's also on Thursday. We can pull up the chart. You want to pull up the chart? I like it here. I think it's consolidating really nicely after a pretty big move. I don't know what you guys think of DraftKings, but I like the little flag that's setting up here, kind of out of a stage one, wave two kind of consolidation for the wave three higher.
I'd be a buyer above 39.42. 39.50.
But you have to take a position before earnings. So what would you do? Not if it was this or if it was that, right? So if you would say I wouldn't take a position, that's a different conversation versus I would take it and then stop out if it happens, right?
Yeah. If I were to, I would probably lean toward taking it than not taking it. I would probably take it, and I would probably have my stop right around 34.
Yep, exactly. The next one is coin. I like it. I would welcome any dips. Especially if it's on lower volume. If it's a really high volume sell, then I'd be quite concerned. But as of now, I'd be long going into it, not a buyer of the current price. Then you also have Twilio, 89 inside weeks. 89 inside weeks. I'm not doing anything. I'm just gonna ignore it. Maybe it has its come to Jesus moment or whatever it is, but yeah, no thanks. It's literally been inside that sell candle from 2022 for 89 or 90 weeks total. Then what else do we have? We have Moderna. We already talked about that. Oh, U.S. Steel. X is an interesting one because that also talks about recession and stuff. So I'm not a buyer of this. I'd be a push.
I don't like the chart.
Yeah, but I'd be watching this name for overall kind of sentiment of the markets. Another one that has potential to be kind of a pretty big mover is Open. There's a huge short interest. It's a very sub-penny stock. It's a penny name, right? But there's been a decent amount of accumulation down here. What's that?
That's still the real estate thing?
Yes. So it's got earnings, but it's also got FOMC. So if FOMC says, hey, we're going to start our rate cut cycle on September, the push for Open could happen going into its earnings, right? But there's a decent amount of accumulation here. If you're looking at the weekly chart, I think Ben has it up here. So you can see all the green candles here. So it's a penny name. It can go to zero. If you're going to be in this, size accordingly, stop accordingly, but it has a huge short interest. So the moves in this name could be pretty large, something to keep on track. MicroStrategy is also Thursday, but unless Bitcoin has earnings that I don't know about, MicroStrategy earnings are useless. I'm just gonna go through the whole list of Thursday because there's so many names.
Yeah, Thursday is like apocalyptic in amount.
Yeah. You also have bookings.com, and based on anecdotal evidence of the amount of people taking vacations this year and our own podcast that is very intermittent and tells me that bookings will probably do really well. Chart is kind of sideways. Can you pull it up, Ben?
Certainly.
BKNG, the Burger King.
There you go.
So I think this is one of those names that if you get dips, you get an opportunity. I'd be a pusher here, but I wouldn't be surprised with pretty solid earnings.
They need to announce a
People
freaking
aren't buying
split.
homes, they're buying vacations.
They need to announce a freaking split.
Yes. Airbus is also on Thursday before the bell. Regeneron Financials is another one that's going to be on there. I like the biotech space, so and Regeneron's been on an absolute tear. So if it continues to push into earnings, I'd probably be a seller
That was
or a
fun.
hold.
We need to tee this earnings buy, sell, push up a little more often.
Yeah. There's also, dude, there's also Shake Shack, Budweiser, Team, Mobileye. Mobileye is one that you should be watching, I
Yes.
think, really,
I didn't
because
throw that
this
in there,
earning-
but yes, I completely agree with Mobileye.
because it's got that spring look. Like they had this monster move up and they just destroyed every bull over the last 4 to 8 weeks or whatever it is.
Even
So
if you
earnings would be
removed
that.
Apple from Thursday's earnings is just ginormous amounts of monies.
Yes. So which means we'll probably be flat.
We'll
that
get,
announcement?
as short seller would say, we'll get some this guy and this guy, a whole bunch of this guy and this guy.
Yeah. But Mobileye is probably the one Mobileye and Open are probably the two names I'd be really kind of watching to see their reactions. I might even take a earnings flyer on this Mobileye.
Yeah, it's been sold without prejudice for a while now.
Yeah.
And I know how you feel about IPOs and basing, but I kind of feel like this one, there might be a trade here, GP. So I'm with you. I'm with you.
Yeah, what I like about this chart, but I'll tell you what I like, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, is like you had this huge capitulation candle down from literally all-time highs, and it's been slowly trickling down. You had this kind of final move here, which basically everyone just gave up, right? Like it's just done, but it's on much lower volume. So you have your essential double bottom. Double bottoms aren't always through the exact time or the exact price, but also sentiment. So I think you have capitulation sometimes in volume, and then you have capitulation in sentiment, which usually causes the double bottom. So you have that kind of accumulation candle and then nonstop selling, but the nonstop selling doesn't even match the accumulations buying. So my thought is this might be a good flyer into earnings.
No, that's exactly my thought, GP. This isn't something that I'm trying to sock 10% of my portfolio away in and just let earnings roulette take control. I see exactly what you're seeing. It has been slaughtered forever, basically, months on end. I mean, 2024 has been a catastrophe. I think you can get some sympathy bounce here potentially. Obviously earnings can go either way, but just based on the chart, I think that there might be some relief. Just looking at the volume, like you said, would it surprise me if it went lower? Hell no. But I think that it's got some potentials for a dead cat bounce.
Yeah. If you change that to a daily, I think the volume stands out even better. Right. And then zoom out a bit. Ever since that gap down,
Yep.
look at every daily bar.
Yep.
Right.
Well, there's more volume going each way now, right?
Yeah. But we just had a nonstop 30% move down in this name into earnings, right? So
At some time, just like buyers get exhausted, at some point, sellers too get exhausted.
yeah, man, this seems like a good earnings trade. It'll probably fail because everyone sees it, but Yeah, sometimes, but this can be, I believe the short interest is pretty high too. Anyone know?
I haven't looked.
I'm looking to.
Hey, Pratt, welcome. Randy says, how about cruises?
Oh,
And
dude.
Jason said open has a 20% implied move. Holy hell. And Brian asked about Roblox. I'm still long Roblox, Brian. GP touched on Roblox earlier. It has a better chart than a lot of stuff out there right now. I mean, it's still stuck in its channel until it busts through 47. But it looks okay. It looks okay.
Dude, PFE has been a great dumpster dive by the way.
It has been. It has been. I'm kind of jealous that I didn't pick some up in the mid 20s there with you guys.
Yeah, like it
I'm
was
not sore about it though. It's fine.
no, but the thought process, I think we talked about it on the pod, which is a couple of years from now, this would most likely be a double, and you'll be holding it with a 6% dividend. So
There you go.
it was never it's going to turn around tomorrow. It's going to be it's a long-term play, and with a decent dividend while it pays you. Um, Roblox, yeah, I think it's in a holding pattern. It's been definitely strong since the last earnings. Can another earnings destroy it again? Sure, it's an up and down channel. Um, yeah, if they go positive, I think you'll see better reaction on it.
Look at the
Cruises look great.
AAPL.
Are you looking at Royal Caribbean? Because that has been an absolute monster.
RCL.
This is what good management does out of a pandemic. Do not look at the Boeing chart because that's what bad management does out of a pandemic.
That pull in right there, that was the gift of a lifetime.
We talked about it. Do you remember that? We
Yeah.
literally talked about that. That was like, this is a great buy, right? That's that pull in after the golden crosses happen. Those
Yeah.
are usually like that's what just happened in Tesla. You had a pull in on earnings into a golden cross, and what did you have today?
Well,
Right? You had
let's not start. I mean, you're talking about management here, so let's not start talking about Tesla management, or I'm going to get in trouble.
still the number one selling car in the country.
I don't give a shit.
He's definitely falling off the deep end.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the company's doing okay, right? In my opinion, I think they're still selling cars. I'm seeing a lot more on the road.
Yeah.
On my road
Yeah,
trips, last couple of road trips I've done, I'm seeing a
Hey,
lot
I'm
more.
I'm start I'm starting to see some Rivians pop up around here, which is surprising to me.
They are.
I cannot. Okay, if I were in the market for a larger or a full size truck, the market is already pricing these 50, 60, 70, $100,000 for a fucking truck. So if I'm going to spend that money, why not go get the damn Cybertruck or the Rivian at that point, right? Like, why the hell not?
I
Um,
would. I really like the build quality of Rivian. I'm not going to argue that. My concern about all electric cars have always been the charging network. Because,
yeah, yeah.
dude,
I brought
I
that
was
up a
in
couple
Quebec
weeks ago.
City.
Yeah,
I was in Quebec City a couple weeks ago with the Y, and right outside my hotel was a third party charging point, and the supercharger was 15 minutes away. And I'm like, okay, let me go just use this third party. It's right there. This is perfect. It'll charge overnight. I spent 25 minutes and I couldn't get it to work. And I'm like, I could have just gone, charged like 15% and come back. I mean, 15 minutes, come back, and I still would have spent less time trying to figure out how to pay for this third party charger.
yeah.
Right. So that was always my biggest concern. And now Tesla's opening up the network for a lot of these other EV names, which I think changes the game for a lot of these guys.
Being out here in rural world, yes, there's definitely not a lot of charging options. But I have been seeing more of the Rivian, which I'm happy to see. But again, if I'm going to be spending anywhere near six figures on a pickup truck, like I'm already in a different market, in my opinion.
Yep.
And maybe this is me not being in touch with the pickup truck market, but it is obscene how much some of these trucks are going, even on the second, even on used. It's just crazy. Everything else I feel like on the used market has come down some, not trucks. It is absurd. I can't normalize $100,000 pickup truck. I just can't normalize that.
That's
No,
insanity.
dude, the used car market for cars that you want still has not. I've been looking for a 6-speed, 5-speed manual for almost a year now, and I've been looking in the Mini Cooper space because I really like it for like commuting and stuff like that. Um, but dude, I'm 10 years old with 120, 150,000 miles and a four-cylinder uh supercharged engine. I'm not paying 10 to 15 grand for this car. Like it's just not going to happen. And those prices have not come down at all.
A year later, from my big short trade, it looks like CarMax is ready to short again, maybe.
Yeah. Mm, ascending
Actually,
wedge breakout.
it kind of looks like Roblox's chart.
But this looks like it's going to break out.
You think so?
Ascending wedge,
Yeah.
rising moving averages, flattening long-term moving averages.
Yeah.
It could do what everything else is doing, inject shit.
Jack and shit. Hey guys,
Yeah.
we're over. I love you. I appreciate you. I'm glad Nick, we finally turned GP to not be such a wet blanket. I think he finally turned the
GP's
corner
never a
about
wet
halfway through the pod. So that was pleasant. But hey, just like Jason said in the chat, I'm ready for a GP wet blanket rally.
Intact. I'm not a wet blanket. I have bull positions and names that I think like IWM. I'm holding August calls. I've been holding August calls before. I think like a day or two before it actually broke out, right? Like I'm bullish in the names that I think can actually move higher, and I don't like I'm holding Tesla calls because I believe that's going higher, but I'm not holding Apple calls because I don't really care. And Netflix, fucking Netflix.
It's all good. It's all good. But we're at time, guys. Hey, thanks for hopping on. We won't be back next week. We've got everybody's doing some traveling, it sounds like. And we know that the pod's been a little all over the place. Hopefully after the summer season gets over, we'll be back into a more standard groove. But hey, life happens. We're out here just doing the best we can, and we'll see you in August. Thanks for watching. Thanks for joining. We always appreciate everyone who hops on. So with that, we're going to